Before I was ever able to get into the hit RPG game Undertale, I'm hesitant to admit that I thought it was a horror game. There was something about the way some of the characters came off, or how often the character would find themselves enveloped in complete darkness. When I actually went through and loaded up the game, however, I realized that I was completely misinformed. Well, not completely. Since Undertale is a game based on choices, there is an outcasted route to take when playing through the game, one that many people can't even bring themselves to try playing. Welcome, I'm Mr.Mirage, and today we're going over the darkest parts of the Undertale series, including its Genocide route, some corrupted fan games, and a disturbing phantom of a character that theorists can't even confirm is actually in the game. Genocide mode is unsettling to say the least. The mode itself is surrounded by controversy, as most fans believe it to be the wrong way to play, and that it should be left to rest. But what makes this mode so traumatizing for so many people to play through? Well, if you didn't know, Undertale is a game that consists of three main ways to play the game: pacifist, neutral, and genocide, with pacifist requiring the player to spare or reason with every monster that gets in your way regardless of who they are. On the opposite side of the spectrum, genocide is merciless, killing everyone in the game, despite people like Papyrus and Toriel posing little to no actual threat, and neutral being, well, a little both. Playing genocide isn't just killing everyone that gets in your way like I initially assumed. You are actually required to search for every single monster in each of the areas and cut them down. Alongside this, many of the puzzles and bosses encountered in the neutral and pacifist routes are bypassed or made basically child's play, making the game a lot quicker to progress. However, this is made up for by the two bosses you do fight being incredibly grueling experiences. What I didn't expect when running through Genocide, though, was the sheer difference the game's story had, and the way the world itself changes, slowly becoming abandoned as you find yourself becoming an unredeemable villain. We start to see the biggest of these changes start during the first world that we find ourselves in, as one of the main villains, Flowey, rather than attacking you at the beginning, addresses you like they are reuniting with an old friend. It seems like rather than meeting you for the first time, Flowey knows exactly what you are, but for now, continues as normal. After progressing as usual, we notice a worried attitude start to form in Toriel, almost as if she has a bad feeling that she is brushing off. Now, I didn't 100% know how to progress this other than that I needed to kill things, so I just kept progressing with that in mind. Eventually, just when I thought I was never going to figure it out, I received a chilling message on my screen.
Oh, that's different. There's no one left. What's with the fucking music, bruh?
There was no one left. Despite me believing that the supply of monsters to confront me was near infinite, I had reached the pure end. Slightly put off by this, I wandered through the rest of the level, alone, horrified on what I had done. Even the static frog NPCs had been turned to dust, and the only thing left to do was to confront Toriel. Even from the beginning, Toriel seemed like a kind individual, between saving me from the previously mentioned flower and having an overall caring motherly attitude towards humans. This gave me a pit in my stomach, for I knew what I was going to have to do. Despite my best efforts to delay the inevitable with meaningless conversation, Toriel still proceeded to attempt to destroy the only way forward, leading to her gruesome, instant death. Stating that rather than protecting me from the underground, with the act of keeping me in the ruins, the only thing she was protecting was the remnants of the monster race. With this line of dialogue from Flowey as I exit from the ruins, I was beginning to suspect I was no longer playing as the human Frisk. Instead, something else, something much more sinister, hell-bent on turning everyone and everything into ruins. When arriving in Snowden, this change in character became more and more obvious. Rather than hiding behind a conveniently shaped lamp, the player will now stand in front of Papyrus and stare him down. If you are familiar with the story of Undertale, Papyrus is ecstatic to finally capture a human, proving himself worthy of a royal guard position, causing him to rush and set up his traps. But instead of Sans' usual encouragement, we get a very odd line. Now, after hearing this dialogue, we are starting to become aware of a few things. Mostly, when Sans states, "Can you at least pretend to be one?" he implies that he has not only a similar feeling that something is wrong, but flat out states he knows the player is no longer a human, leaving us with the notion that Sans may also be more than he seems. These unique lines continue throughout all of the puzzles that have been mostly disabled or just have no effect on the player, letting them ominously creep closer to Snowden Town. Rather than bustling with people, Snowden is completely abandoned, except for one kid who states that all of the residents have hidden in fear, leaving us, just Papyrus, unfortunately, standing in my way. Our experience with Papyrus in Genocide is absolutely heartbreaking as he is such a lovable character. From the beginning, you begin to feel overwhelmingly bad for him as his long thought out plan and all the time and effort he put into is laid to waste as the emotionless shell of Frisk walks right through it. Slowly, this takes a visible toll on Papyrus's demeanor as he becomes more demoralized and disappointed, along with trying to hide his obvious growing fear of what he is coming up against. But the worst part is, despite all this and all the horrible things the player has done so far, Papyrus still offers to redeem you rather than fight you. He is yet to realize it is too late. I'm not gonna lie, killing Papyrus had me questioning whether this run was worth all of this. The merciless killing, the depressing story, but it was mostly the isolation that came along with slowly becoming the villain of this world. It was clear that nothing and no one stand a chance thus far, and everyone knew it, evacuating and hiding. Even the Temi village had become completely abandoned, except for oddly the Tem shop itself. Being on the other end of an apocalypse like this was surreal. At this point, I was fully expecting Undying to be extraordinarily pissed, and I wasn't wrong. Undying was obviously hellbent on killing me throughout all of the caves, and when I finally came to duel her, it was an interesting experience. Perfect. And then I get hit.
Where's the kill yourself option? That's the option. Just kill me, just right me in the ass! Jeez, fucking hell.
Fighting Undying broke me in a way I wouldn't have expected. Rather than being one shot like everyone else, she was one of the most frustrating boss fights I had ever encountered. I had spent hours trying to somehow master this boss fight, and when I finally did beat her, I had lost all sense of mercy that I had previously had. But looking past all of that, even though the boss fight was impossible, even though I was so incredibly pissed, she still gave her everything to try and stop the player from proceeding, both sacrificing herself to save the monster kid from before and reviving herself to keep fighting, leading me to believe that maybe if I wasn't filled with such a blinding fucking rage, I might have been able to acknowledge how much resolve she actually had. But in the end, she was still unable to stop the advance of the player to the core. The fact that the player had become strong enough to evacuate the capital of the underground was incredibly unnerving. I was able to walk through once bustling buildings now completely devoid of any life. At this point, despite controlling the player, part of me was hoping someone, somewhere, was going to stop me. But no one did, with Metaton and Muffet putting up nothing but a depressing speech. As I reached the end of this cursed run, I had to come to realize even Flowey had become terrified on how powerful I had become, leaving the player now completely and totally isolated. With a long list of sins crawling up my back, there was only one thing left to do: finish Asgore.
Do you want to have a bad time? Because if you take another step forward, you're really not going to like what happens next. Well, sorry, old lady. This is why I never make promises. Damn, it's a beautiful day outside. Birds are singing. I'm getting chills right now, bruh. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I always wonder why people never use their strongest attack first. Oh, yo, this is raw.
Never in my life had I been so happy to be completely annihilated. The Sans boss fight was a surprise, but a welcome one. I guess I sorta had the idea I was always gonna have to fight him. I was just confused on when it was supposed to happen. But looking back, there was an ominous warning given back in Snowden that I guess should have given this away. This fight had me questioning whether Undying was the hardest boss. I couldn't even land a single hit on Sans, nonetheless come close to killing him. Oddly, this gave me a feeling of relief, knowing that this was it, where it finally ends. But slowly, as the fight ticked on, minute after minute, I realized that not even Sans, as powerful as he was, could keep this up forever, leading to an end of the fight that rivaled even the death of Papyrus. Seeing Sans try his literal hardest to kill the player, and seeing him slowly tire out and lose any hope of beating you, has to be the most depressing part of this run. After defeating Sans, this run came to a quick end. No one was left. Even Flowey ended up being brutally killed. After completing Genocide, I was left very confused on one thing. If I wasn't human, then what was the entity that did this to everyone? We kinda get an answer in the form of Chara. Chara is introduced in the ending of Genocide and admits to being the power instead of Frisk this entire time, leading them to erase the entire underground. The lore of Undertale describes Chara as another child who fell into the underground, becoming adopted by Toriel and Asgore and befriending their son Asriel, before leading them both to their deaths at the hands of humans, leaving Asriel to become Flowey, which explains why Flowey was able to recognize Chara inside Frisk fairly early on. While Genocide was very unsettling, I wanted to look into the horror fan games surrounding Undertale to see what they had to offer. And 3 came to my attention. Number 1. Truelab is a corrupted version of Undertale, taking place in the version of Alphys' lab where everything has gone terribly wrong, containing bloodied and tortured versions of the characters, most notably Toriel that begs to be killed, then rushes the player. This game ends with a disturbing image of Frisk glitching across your screen and the game closing, very typical of your .exe games. Number 2. Horror Tale. Horror Tale is a fan game set after the events of the Undertale neutral ending, where all of the underground has become destroyed mess of what it once was. This game reminded me of what I originally thought Undertale would be like, and it follows a very similar story. But you can immediately tell this game is very different, as characters like Toriel seem very unhinged and obsessive, adding a creepy vibe that the game didn't have before. Number 3. Slender Tale. Despite the cheesy name, this one has a lot more depth than I expected. You once again play as Frisk, this time wandering through a dark house, looking for, as the name implies, 7 pages. The scariest part of the game is the lighting, or more lack thereof, along with the bizarre nature of the house you're exploring. For example, one second you will be in a forest, and one just a normal living room. After a while, you realize you aren't alone. A dark figure looms around the house, a character you may not have seen before, and at first glance may not even think is in the actual game. A sort of phantom of Undertale, Dr. W.D. Gaster. Now there is a reason I referred to him as a phantom, and it's not because he is a ghost like Nabstablook, for an example. Gaster is a character that you could easily miss if you weren't looking for him, and this is on purpose. Gaster is said to be the ex-royal scientist before Alphys, known to be one of the best and creating the core. You first can hear about him from a special dialogue from the River Traveler, as one of his lines warn you to beware of the man who speaks in hands. Later on, there are random creatures that call themselves Gaster's followers that can spawn in the core, telling you more about him and what happened. These stories tend to be extremely unsettling, with one follower even suggesting that Gaster is still watching us. But the question is Gaster really still present in the game? Undertale is a very unique experience through and through, and while gruesome, the Genocide route brought a new perspective on the game. And overall, since I wasn't expecting to find anything too scary in the base game, surprises like Gaster and Chara were able to give me that uneasy feeling that I enjoy so much in the horror games that I play. So if you haven't played Undertale, or if you're purposely shying away from the Genocide route, I recommend giving it a try if you want a new way to experience the game Undertale.
Well, that was quite an adventure. I'm sad to see you go, but don't worry, this doesn't have to be the last time we see each other. I got another cool video, just for you. Hurry, the video's almost over.